Overrated or underrated? You know how it goes. You throw in a note to us, and we discuss if it is overrated, underrated, and sometimes, just sometimes, because we don't like staying on the fence all the time.
No, you can't.
Things can be perfectly rated.
Yeah, no doubt.
You know, like spaghetti and meatballs.
Mm-hmm.
Perfectly rated. Who underrates that?
Yeah.
Nobody does, because everybody rates it highly. And why would you rate it less than that? You wouldn't. So that's how the game is played. You know it. All right. Producer Josh Elliott Wolf, what do we got?
So the first one we'll start with Brock Besser talk.
Okay.
Overrated or underrated?
Okay, so I would say that the notion of him being untradeable is overrated. I think this comes down to Vancouver's valuation.
Right.
Vancouver doesn't want to retain money.
Right.
But Granlund is at a $5 million cap hit.
He's 31 and is not very good.
Yeah, but has a cap hit of $5 very, very good. I don't disagree. But his cap hit is $5 million for 2 more years.
Yes.
What's the word been? That if Besser's cap hit was $5 million, he could get traded. So that means Vancouver
probably got a second-round pick back.
Yeah, so Vancouver would have to retain 1.65 or so. But I don't think Vancouver wants to retain money and only get a second back in return. They're saying, we're retaining money, and then you have a player who's better than Mikael Granlund, and you only want to give us the second-round pick. Like I said before, if Vancouver retains money, they want something for retaining money on Besser.
See, that to me makes sense. You know, like Besser is clearly a better player and has more upside than Mikael Granlund does at this stage of his career. And that guy just went for a second-round pick. But sometimes, like, I don't know, the valuation of forwards in the NHL just doesn't make any sense. You know, Michael Granlund goes for a second. Nino Niederreiter goes for a second. Marcus Johansson goes for a third-round pick, is an unrestricted free agent. But then, you know, Besser and Garland are just completely untradeable. These are younger players that have scored at 50, 60-point paces through their entire careers. But no, that's... Can't take that guy. Can't do it. What's happening?
What is going on?
Something about the valuations doesn't make a ton of sense. And we talked about this with Riley Stillman earlier this week.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we watched this guy play all year. And, you know, we all kind of thought the same thing. Like, oof, I don't know if you're going to get something back for this guy.
Yeah, and then
they did.
Something happened.
They got a legitimate prospect back for Riley
And
Stillman.
maybe we're seeing the trades. Like we saw, like, even a Niederreiter trade, you know, less $4 million or whatever. We're starting to see, like, there is value and there is desire to get these players. But it's how much you're willing to eat. And I think Vancouver's doing a good job of not eating too quickly and taking something they don't need to take.
Yeah.
Because they waited like the other ones, and they found takers.
So Brock Besser, trade possibility, underrated. All right, next.
Next, we got a few of these. The obvious, Filip Hronek. Overrated or underrated?
Okay, so in Vancouver, he will definitely be underrated. Because
right now he's being called overrated.
Because of everything that's happened in this market, going back years now, you can't look at a player and just evaluate them for who they are. We're all evaluating it in the big picture of everything, and you know, it's an unfortunate reality. It's kind of like JT Miller. You know, people don't really look at JT Miller objectively anymore. It's just all about his contract. You can't look at Tyler Myers objectively because it's all about his contract. It doesn't matter that he's maybe a $4 million type defenseman because he's $6 million, and the Canucks didn't need him when they got him. So it's really frustrating. But Filip Hronek is actually good, and I'm really excited to see how he fits here in Vancouver. You know, he's going to bring some offense. I'm curious as to who he plays with, if they try him with Quinn Hughes or they like to see him with somebody else. But this is an actually good defenseman. It's a rarity that a top 4 right shot defenseman even becomes available in trade, but I think the Canucks got a legitimate one.
Yeah, no, I think they got a legitimate one. If his play is going to be anything like it's been this season, then I think we're talking about a player who's going to be underrated.
All right, that's Filip Hronek, underrated.
Right. Next one, John, the Canucks deadline so far, overrated or underrated?
Whew. So yesterday it was a win. So things changed in a day. Like, it's going to change again. Like, now it's kind of like, I don't know. Like, it's hard to evaluate. It's a very unclear picture, right?
Yesterday,
I'd say it's underrated because of the action. Like, there's so much action, and there's going to be more action. Like, we set the over-under. what a joke. I'm like
Sat was like 1.5 trades.
One and a half trades. Like, they'll do Shen. Do they do something else? Maybe one more trade.
So now they've done Horvat.
No, this was after Horvat.
Yeah.
After Horvat. I said
So after Horvat, we
said
set the number at 1.5.
Probably should have said it higher, but we set it at 1.5.
We've had Shen,
Yeah.
Kravtsov, Hronek,
Yeah.
Stillman.
Yeah.
So we've had 4 deals so far.
4 deals so far. 1.5 from today till the end of Friday. I'm still taking the over.
Chef Patrick continuing to do the work. So yesterday, after the Stillman trade and the Luke Shen move, to me, I'm kind of like, hey, Bona, you know, this is nice. I like what's happening here. And then today, I mean, the trade goes down, and I'm, what are you guys
What's
doing?
going on? What is happening here? What is going on?
I felt like my cousin Vinny down the street. Like, what are you guys doing? You know, this is unbelievable. You know, it's just, again, we're going through this again. The same conversations. Will they ever end? No, they won't. This is just the reality of covering the Vancouver Canucks and being a fan of the Vancouver Canucks. You will forever have to debate the merits of a rebuild versus a retool. And until one happens or one works, like until the rebuild happens or the retool works, the conversation will continue. There's no getting away from it. So right now, the Canucks deadline so far incomplete. We'll make a new metric for this one because we still have till Friday. As of right now, after the Hronek trade, it's overrated.
This one from Dan. Patience. Overrated or underrated?
Patience. It's underrated, especially in the National Hockey League. Look at Detroit right now. And yeah, they made the move with the Vancouver Canucks. They've been rebuilding for a couple of years, and they can kind of sniff the playoffs. Like, oh, we can smell it.
Close. We're there.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
We're close. Little Caesars Arena. Smell
Smells
that
so
hot
good.
and fresh pizza.
It's wafting. Wafting.
All those people coming to watch our games.
Yeah.
But they're like, you know what? In this Eastern Conference, we don't even stand a chance. So let's make some future forward-thinking moves. And they've done that. They've added a couple of more first-round picks. They've added a couple more second-round picks. And they're going to continue to build out what's already a pretty deep team and a pretty deep prospect system. So that's what patience gets you. What patience or lack of patience gets you is not much of a prospect pool and up and down results like we've seen the Canucks have the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, it's been way too many. It's about victories. Get victories, real ones.
Get wins, baby.
Mike G, the Islanders' first-round pick. Overrated or underrated?
It was underrated before. Now it's like how quickly people have flipped on it. I guess now everyone wants the Islanders to make the playoffs, right? That I think that's the take. Islanders make the playoffs and
Yes.
guarantee that it's a
Islanders win the cup would be ideal.
yeah, late, like very late first round pick.
Yeah.
Now you want the Islanders to not only make the playoffs but at least do damage. Also do damage in the postseason.
So do you think the Canucks saw the Islanders win a few games in a row and were like, you know what? This pick's not going to be that great. You know, they're going to make the playoffs.
They're like, oh my God, we underrated Bo Horvat. He's going to take him to the postseason now. I don't think that happened, but honestly, I think
Even
all
after
along, they wanted to flip that pick. It seems like.
Yeah. But even after the Islanders have gone on this little bit of a streak here, they're still 9th in points percentage. They're still behind the Sabres, still behind the Penguins. Penguins have won 3 in a row now, by the way. But chances are they still miss the playoffs with that pick. And it probably ends up being around 13, 14, 15. And so that pick still wildly underrated. And if the New York Islanders end up giving an unprotected pick to the Detroit Red Wings next year, there's going to be a lot of scoreboard watching on the Islanders by Canucks fans next season.
J.R. Tiger, tanking with Pettersson and Hughes on your team.
See, this is overrated. But as I've said, it's required more patience than tanking. Like, obviously, this year, there's no other choice the Canucks have than to tank the rest of this season. And when you look at the roster stat, I think we all know the tank is on, baby.
Yes.
Even though they won these last couple of games and have, well, not couple of games, but they've put together a little streak of getting some points here. But they needed to exercise more patience through this season and next. in my humble opinion. That is obviously not happening. But you can't tank forever, especially when you have Pettersson and Hughes on the roster. And more so Hughes, and I would throw Demko into this. If Demko's a part of this retool, you've got 3 more years left of a well above average goalie at $5 million per.
Well, you take
so that puts a bit of a ticker on how long you can stay out of the playoff chase.
Well, if you're holding on to it, then how many of those years can you take advantage of? Can you take advantage of 2 and actually be a contender? You got a lot of work to do in the next year.
How much of the Hronek trade is, well, we also still have to show Pettersson a bright future here in Vancouver.
Yeah.
It's one of those things we've been saying kind of for years, like, oh, you got to show the core that you're moving in a better direction. These guys want to win games.
I will say, but I'm so sick of that excuse. I mean, they've been trying to like sell the core on staying here, and then what happens when you keep doing that? Like, it can't just be about that. It has to be legitimately like you have a proper plan, and we're going to execute this and be a good team, and not just go and make a move that's rash because we're trying to impress a guy we're trying to pay $90 million to.
Steve, the Pittsburgh Penguins as a trade partner, overrated or underrated?
Okay.
Apparently underrated.
I mean, I know our man Irf's been mentioning, and I've said this before, like, I have not independently been able to verify or confirm through people I've talked to that Vancouver and Pittsburgh are engaged in anything. It doesn't mean they're not, but I've all along I've said I don't know anything about Pittsburgh. All I can tell you is JT's not getting traded to Pittsburgh. That's all I can tell you. Like, I don't know about anything else. Because they barely have cap space now after making the Granlund trade, the only way they can make this trade with Besser is if they're sending a contract back. Would Marcus Pettersson be that left-hand D we were talking about to be Hronek's partner?
So
does that make sense if we start putting puzzle pieces together? Because the only way it makes sense to me, the Pittsburgh trade, if we're to be an underrated trade partner for Besser, is if you're getting Pettersson back and something else. Like, if you're taking Pettersson back, do you get a pick too? Can you get the first-round pick from Pittsburgh, who still has a first, if you're taking Pettersson off their hands and sending Besser there and retaining potentially slightly?
Shayna Goldman, 9 minutes ago. Pens add Granlund for 2+ years, which lines up with the big threes window. Following the pattern, another player whose deal fits that timeline is Besser, whose cap hit matches say Marcus Pettersson and Brock McGinn. Would expect Van to recoup some sorely needed capital if they make that deal. So that was from Shayna Goldman, who's been really good with her reporting through deadline season and has been on this Vancouver-Pittsburgh connection a lot over the last few days.
And even the JT stuff that came out, it's been like I said, I'm not saying they haven't been hearing JT's name. It's been out there. I'm just saying I'm not expecting JT to get traded there, and I don't expect JT to get traded by the deadline. But his name's been there, so I think she's been hearing the same things that people in Pittsburgh have been hearing. But clearly, JT's not the target.
Could be Brock Besser, though. I would say, look.
So if
you're taking back Marcus Pettersson, the difference
can you get the first if you're doing that?
Yeah, I would think so. Or at least a second.
And do you send Rathbone too then, or something? Like a prospect, do it that way, where you're giving them a defenseman back in return. I mean, that's how it makes sense.
Is Marcus Pettersson a negative value asset?
His contract
in the eyes of the league.
Well, I think he's a $4 million player who's probably not playing at that level this year.
Yeah.
But if you're playing him next to
Filip Hronek,
you feel like he's going to be the lefty, can play in the PK a little bit, moves the puck decently out of his own zone. Can he be kind of the stay? We talked about this before. Ideal partners.
Gives you a left shot D to take over for when you buy out Oliver Ekman-Larsson in the summer. Just a theory. I don't know. Just a theory.
Next one. Austin and Langley. Big swing rentals at the trade deadline. Overrated or underrated? I think this is for any team, not just the Canucks.
Generally overrated. I've often felt that teams overpay for weird rentals.
Oh, yeah. It happens all the time.
Like, when the Leafs paid a first-round pick for Foligno, I was like, what? What are you doing that for? Or last year, the way Florida just went all in on both Giroux and Ben Sherratt. How'd that work out for them? Grim, right?
Yeah.
And like their future value is very grim right now as they try to put a team around Sasha Barkov and Matthew Tkachuk. I've often felt it's the types of players that get overpaid for at the deadline that often be the ones that turn out to be the problem. The Ben Sherratts of the world. Oh, this guy's a playoff player.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, and also just in general, if your team needs multiple big players to become a contender, you're probably not going to become a contender.
Yeah,
it's usually the teams that have already done all their heavy lifting and are adding finishing pieces to it. So if you're trading your future away at the deadline, it's probably not going to work out because the flaws you're trying to fix are too big for you to be able to cover over. That's why it's the minor moves, because teams that are making minor moves have their big questions solved already.
Yeah.
So generally the biggest spenders at the deadline are the most overrated at the end of the day. Usually.
Like the entire 2006 Canucks deadline. Eric Weinrich, Sean Brown, Keith Carney, Mika Norrinen.
They traded a second-round pick for Norrinen. They traded a second-round pick for Keith Carney, I believe it was. They traded like a fifth-round pick for Sean Brown, I think it was, right? Am I on the right? And a third-round pick for Weinrich. Am I right about that, too? Did I nail all the picks?
Pretty much.
Yeah. And they didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah.
They didn't make the playoffs.
So all of that, they sent out 2 second-rounders, a third-round pick, a fourth-round pick, Brett Skinner, and Thomas Moises.
Yeah, Moises. I actually thought he had. For overrated, underrated. There was a time I thought Thomas Moises was a underrated defenseman.
No,
in the Canucks
you didn't.
I did.
Stop it.
I will find a tweet.
This is not something you need
he
to
wasn't
admit
good.
to either.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like Thomas Moises, like shows you my acumen, right? I thought this guy might be a player. Definitely not. And like the best part about that, the thing that made it the most overrated, like Canucks traded a second for Norrinen. They're like, hey, at least Norrinen might be the goalie for the future. He didn't even come back to the NHL after.
Yes, I've long been a Rudolph's Balsers guy, so I know exactly what you mean.
JL trade deadline shows, overrated or underrated?
This
on
Friday?
TV or on the radio.
We're doing an extra. Look, we agreed to do an extra hour on Friday, and at least we'll have a lot of things to recap.
Yeah, well, exactly. You know what? We haven't really been able to fully break everything down around the league, so we'll give you good insight and breakdown. So it's going to be underrated, even though you're thinking the trades might be overrated because there'll be fewer of them.
I keep saying, the big trades are pretty much done, but every day the NHL provides something new. We can't call the GMs cowards anymore, Sat.
There are endless beers to hold now, right? Like you know what? For once, NHL GMs, you're not being cowards for once.
Yeah.
You made some trades. The no fun league, the broke boys league is acting a little tougher this year.
It's almost like the all the years of pent up wanting to be able to do things has just resulted in teams finally getting creative about how to work around the salary cap constraints.
What's the take always, right? That GMs can't help the urge to spend their cap space in the summer.
Yes.
And all year there was no cap space in the league. But we always said that you get to the deadline, cap space accrues. Finally around the deadline, a few weeks outside, you'll have some space to do stuff. Boy, did they spend it in a hurry. They couldn't wait to spend that little bit of cap space they had.
Yeah. All right. Next.
Next one, Silver and Black Canuck, the NFL Combine, overrated or underrated?
I think it's overrated, but it's underrated if you think like there's the baseline's underrated. I think you have to have a baseline of athleticism, but I think always like the traits could be overrated specifically sometimes because we talk about 40s and explosive times and this and that, and then 3 cones. We can get too carried away with it sometimes.
I love seeing the quarterbacks go for the big dad run. Like, tell me there is better video out there than Tom Brady running the 40, right? It's incredible. And he was what, 22 at the time? Yeesh. He looked like, your regular 43-year-old with 2 kids, running down the street in his fancy New Balance, Like that was Tom Brady at his combine.
Fancy New Balance?
Yes.
Oh, okay. They are back. They're back.
But like
in
the
style.
typical like dad shoe New Balance. I think even
the
those
white
are
and blue
in
ones.
style. Yes.
Yeah, they are. They are. Ironically.
Styles are so strange. Anyways.
Vicky, travel neck pillows, overrated or underrated?
They might be the most overrated thing on the planet. Like, do you have a travel neck pillow? Like when you get on a plane, the neck pillow. Maybe I'm using it wrong.
You know what?
It never really feels all that great.
So I saw a TikTok. Now I don't know if it was you. You know what I'm talking about. Josh is nodding his head. I think we've been wearing it wrong.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like you just put it behind your head?
No, you're supposed to put it like up your neck.
Because you have a
So,
seat behind your head already.
Yeah, that's why it's uncomfortable. It makes sense. Like you put it on back here, you're like, this is so uncomfortable. It's like, yeah, no, you know what?
So I've been doing it wrong my whole life.
Me too. Yeah.
It's
Someone's
so
trying
if you
it.
lean forward that you're not like.
Is this like
falling over.
here's something I wish I knew before I was in my 30s?
Exactly. It's pretty much. It's like a bib for your chin.
How does this work?
I mean, just
You
put
just
it.
flip
All
it.
right, I'm trying this at home. So,
Because I'm with you. I thought they were overrated. I'm like, what are these things? They're totally just like a joke. It's like, I'm an idiot.
I mean, there is definitely like way too many people who have spent too much at like an airport kiosk for a travel neck pillow, and then been like, man, this doesn't do anything.
Oh.
This is awful.
The best is, you know what's overrated? Preparing yourself for a long flight in
Yes.
terms of having snacks and movies to watch, because you end up not even doing half of the stuff you planned on doing.
Just nice to have it there, though.
Yeah.
It makes me more comfortable.
Oh, that's great.
Last one with this Discount Dracula, different flavored popcorn. So just not the butter flavor. Maybe throw dill pickle in there.
Oh no,
Cheddar.
I'm not big on dill pickle. I can handle cheddar.
I can do the white cheddar. Yeah.
Okay. I like the sweet and salty stuff.
Mhm.
That's good. Some of the
I'm big on throwing the Tabasco sauce into the popcorn.
It's too. You gotta do it's too much. It gets soggy. You
It
gotta,
gets messy.
Yeah.
Yes.
What
Sat
about
doesn't
a-
like anything with
I
a
don't like
little bit of
messy.
heat
I don't like messy.
either.
Yeah. No, and yeah, that.
What about a Chicago mix?
Yeah, Chicago mix is good. Sweet
With
it
the
has-
little
yeah.
M&Ms inside and
We have
whatever.
some cheddar ones too.
Well, it's like the cheddar and the caramel one.
Oh yeah.
They're like
yeah.
a popcorn trail mix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do like pouring like Smarties or M&Ms into the bag of popcorn.
Yeah, that's a good. That's a veteran move.
It's good.
Yeah, go to the movies, get like a bag of like
Yeah. Yeah.
chocolates and some gummies, and just
Milk
throw them all
duds.
in. Yeah, or milk duds are good.
I would say movie popcorn, like the butter for movie popcorn, is definitely overrated. Anyways.
I don't know. I don't agree with that. Big on the butter.
All right, that's it for overrated, underrated.